Yeah, so I think if it's one thing that we want to take away from today's session too, is that we shouldn't be afraid of failure, and it's having compassion and empathy. But before we wrap up, I wanted also to open the floor up to some Q&As. Does anyone have any questions for our speakers? Maybe I'll let you guys think about that for a bit. I have one more question, actually. So if you could give one advice to our future leaders on timeless leadership, what would that be? Andy, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, we talk about empathy. So I think as a leader, think less of yourself. Think more about those who you lead. I think that is sometimes is a very, you look around the world, I think there are leaders who are all about themselves. You know, I don't know, maybe they're really the most powerful and most brightest people in the world. Maybe that is true. But I think for us, we want someone who would think about us, who would be willing to serve us and lead us out of this current difficulty. So that's my simple statement there.
I love that. Don't just think about yourself. What about you, Esther?
I say, using Sir David as a role model, always be a humanitarian. Especially in this day and age, you know, technology is overtaking humanity. We still have to uphold our principles, our value system, our good hearts. So I always use this slogan, is do good, feel good, and you look good.
Awesome. I love that too. I will be living by that model so I can look as good as Esther. How about you, Brian?
I agree with what both of them saying, but adding to that, I think authenticity, being true to yourself, being true to the people around you. I think authenticity would rub off, and when you are being honest and truthful, you have to be you have to have humility in order to be authentic. And I think and able to engage your audience, the people that you work with, authenticity would go a long way with respect, and then that would build trust. And there's no guarantee of winning or not, or success, but I think going through the journey together as a team, seeing eye to eye with each other, and then having the courage to make the call, even to make mistake, I think these are important sort of characters to truly lead an organization or a group.
Yeah, and being authentic in these trying times is super important. And lastly, Vincent.
I like all these points, and if I may build on Brian's point about authenticity, I think being realistic and watching your ecosystem is important. So I think of leadership kind of like being a pilot on a route, on a fixed route, right? Like if you're going to be flying on a fixed route from London to Milan, it might be very authentic for you to feel that, I would like to stop by Cairo, I'm going to change course. But you got 235 passengers in your capsule who may not want to go to Cairo. So you got to be realistic, watch your ecosystem, figure out a way to understand whether that's what they want as well, and be able to listen to their views and be prepared to change course if necessary.
And talking about changing courses, so let's see if we have any other questions from the floor. Yes, this gentleman.
There's a question for each of the panelists, and so you can give your own answer. Thank you very much for offering your views. You're clearly very interested in things that happen in Hong Kong, and I'm sure you're very interested in all the different. Hi, thank you. There's many problems that Hong Kong faces. So, what is one problem that you wish you had more time to work on, and that you would if you had the time to do it, and you wish someone else would step up and be that leader that you could if you had the time to do it? So I'd like to hear each of what you think.
Maybe I'll take a step first. I think a lot of the problem that Hong Kong is facing is a lack of communication between parents and children. I think the way that Hong Kong is structured, parents don't really talk to the youth and their kids. And when you don't have that dialogue, there isn't sharing of values, there isn't sharing of history, there isn't a commonality that a value you can build on. So I really think, Hong Kong is lucky we have a lot of helpers, but the problem with having helpers, then you don't have to do chores, you don't have to the dialogue is where to have dinner or that sort of thing, but lacks intimate times as a family unit. And I think a lot of our current social problem can be improved if the family can really have a conversation and be bonded as a unit. Then the community as a whole can feel more as a family, then the city can feel more as a family. Then we become more acceptable to differences. We become more tolerant with different values. And I think that conversation have to start from home. And the way that both mother and father working 12 hours a day doesn't help. And I do think the root, it's the lack of conversation, true, meaningful conversation at home. And I talked to a lot of the youth at my office over the last 9 months. I talked to over 120 of them in small groups. And the conversation I had with them for 3 hours, and I asked them, have you anyone talked to you in this sort of open dialogue? Never, not from the teacher, not from the parents. And among their friends, they have a single perspective. So, you know, spending more time engaging and having a real relationship with the younger people, I think that's what Sir David really wants, is having that authentic relationship can help to break down a lot of the walls that we have built over the last 15, 20, 30 years.
And to build onto that, I think, you know, as part of the ecosystem, mentorship is important. And a lot of reasons why, you know, there is an absence of direction for all these kids is, you know, the entire ecosystem does not have a lot of good reference points, so to speak, in order for them to emulate. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us who are privileged enough, who want to be mentors and who have the heart to execute it in a way that gives better guidance so that they have more reference points to look at. I think that could be a differentiating factor too.
Yeah, I totally agree with Vincent. I think mentorship is very important. Whether you're switching jobs or you just need some sound advice, a mentor can be really, you know, giving really good guidance and inspiration. And I'm very glad that one of my mentors is here today. But since you mentioned mentorship, I'd like to add on Brian's point, which is transparency. Transparency within the workplace, within the family, within the government, within the community. I think it's very important.
Well, to me, I've got something rather simple. I think while I'm saying that we have to understand other people and empathize and all that, I think, you know, the first thing is to take good care of yourself, particularly those people who are, you know, in turmoil, in anxiety, in all kinds of, you know, difficult situations. I think, you know, look after yourself. Also, look out for the people who are around you. Okay, I think that is the second point, because if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after other people. But if you can look after yourself and you can care about those people around you, I think a lot of those issues will be resolved in time, right? So I think the life is not so difficult, but, you know, we all have to do a bit more.
Thank you. And thank you for your great question. Are there any other questions?
Hello. Well, referring to our survey question, we found that the young generation have lack of confidence, and that is one of the greatest challenge and obstacle in becoming a leader. So can you guys tell us more about how to build up your confidence and how to train your young leaders to be like real leaders? Thank you.
Well, using my daughters as an example, I bring them everywhere. I bring them to my events. They are the receptionists. They clear the garbage. They talk to people. Because these days, you know, young people, they are very stubborn, and sometimes they idolize, you know, all kinds of pop groups, and they're you know, always on the phone, right? So they need these kind of human interaction, and we as parents should try to give them as many opportunities as possible to build their self-confidence. Another area that I learned from my own experience is public speaking. I remember the first time I was MC for a wedding was when I was 18 years old, and I was nervous. I was, you know, shivering, but, you know, perfection comes with practice. So I think standing on the stage, be an MC, practice your public speaking skills, then, you won't have that stage fright, and that kind of, in turn builds your self-confidence.
You talk about confidence, right? I think confidence comes from a deeper understanding and accepting of knowing who you really are. So knowing yourself is the foundation of having confidence. Accepting who you are, it's a manifestation of that understanding. So you may be bad at something, but you may be good at something. So accepting that you're bad at something, but knowing you're good at something else gives you the confidence to stand up for yourself. And obviously, having a nurturing sort of friends and family to help you to accept those, to be knowing who you are is important, because very often we don't see who we are, but we need our friends as mirrors. That's a cliche that we often say. Then through the conversation, then you get to learn who you are. So knowing your identity, your true identity, not only as your name or even your family heritage, your parents, the history of it. I think all those accumulate to who you are, and then knowing the place you're born. What's the history? How do you relate? And only through that process, that accepting your true identity and gifts. We all have gifts, different gifts. So accepting that, then you can be truly stand up as yourself in front of whoever. And then you move forward. So the confidence comes from really a conversation for people as mentors and all those telling you, not telling you, but coaching you and guiding you to know what you truly are capable of.
I really love that acceptance point, self-acceptance, because so often we're so fixated about improving ourselves, self-improvement, and we forgot about the importance of self-acceptance. If you have great family members that nurtures that, that's great. If not, ask feedback. Ask those who are willing to give you the valuable feedback and be able to give you the truthful feedback that is necessary for you to see your blind spots. And you have to figure out a way to entice them to do so, because getting feedback is so difficult nowadays. But do get that feedback, and that's the path to confidence.
I also think that I really echo with the acceptance bit. But probably a little bit twist on that is that while you accept you are who you are, but I think, again, the focus should not always be on yourself. A lot of times you feel, oh, you're nervous, you don't think you can do it, but why you? You're servicing, you're serving a purpose. There is something that's bigger than yourself. So I think if you can just expand your consciousness beyond just your own self-interest, probably you will be less nervous.
And thank you guys all for such insightful answers. I know we're out of time, and I know the lady in white also had a question, but our speakers will be around a little bit later on, so you can catch them and ask them yourself. Thank you guys for your time, and thank you all so much for your time as well.